On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, who's getting blamed for the Allision between the Mexican training ship Cuauhtémoc and the Brooklyn Bridge? I'm your host, Sal Mercagliano. Welcome to today's episode. So we've been covering this event from the night it happened. And I think it's important to take a moment and reflect on two key issues. Number one, two people died in this tragedy, and it keeps getting forgotten, in my opinion. One of them is America Sanchez. The other is Adaljar Marcos. These two young Mexican naval cadets lost their lives in an accident that they did not foresee happening. They went from a moment of joy and departure from New York City to sheer horror and terror. And unfortunately, what tends to happen in accidents is people start pointing their fingers and blaming each other. I want to take a look at where we're at in the investigation, what's going on, and also clarify some of the key issues here, where responsibility lies in this matter. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to be alerted about new videos as they come out. So we got three entities that are in play here. One is the Mexican Navy. Cuauhtémoc is the national training ship. It is a Mexican naval vessel. So that gives it certain rights and privileges under U.S. law. However, we're going to go into that in some detail. Second, you have the Sandy Hook Pilot Association. Pilots provide expertise to ships coming in and out of port. Now, pilots do not relieve a ship's captain or master of their responsibilities for the safe navigation and operation of their vessel. There's only 2 points where a ship surrenders control over to a pilot. That is the Panama Canal and going in and out of a dry dock. In the case of a Sandy Hook pilot, Sandy Hook pilots are acknowledged to be some of the best trained qualified pilots because it takes a really, really long time to become a Sandy Hook pilot. Even though this pilot was only operating on his own for a few months now, they have to undergo a long, protracted apprenticeship under the tutelage of a senior pilot. So this pilot definitely had the requisite training and capabilities to navigate this vessel in and off the berth. Then you have the towboat, in this case, the Charles D. McAllister of McAllister Towing. This is a company that has 160 years of experience. McAllister tugs are, ever present in U.S. ports around the world. This is probably one of the finest tugboat operators in the United States today. So all three of those entities played a role here, the Mexican Navy in having the vessel, the pilot, and then the tugboat. The question is, who bears the onus of responsibility? Well, that's going to be the job for the National Transportation Safety Board to determine. So the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, has initiated an investigation. They are on the ground inspecting Cuauhtémoc, taking depositions and interviewing people involved in the event. And we expect them to release a report within an interim report in 30 days, with an entire report, hopefully within a year. However, there was a preliminary news conference that was held. So this is one of the chief maritime inspectors for the National Transportation Safety Board. This is Brian Young. And in a weird coincidence of this incident, I know Brian Young. Brian Young and I went to school together. We were both graduates of the State University of New York Maritime College. He was a year behind me, but we lived on the same floor in our dorm room. So I've known Brian Young, BY, for a very long time. Brian gives a good rundown here on the timeline. I'm going to go ahead and let Brian convey that to you.
The vessel arrived on May 13th around noon and docked port side 2 at Pier 17. The vessel remained there for about 3 days, and at 8:20 p.m. on May 17th, with the assistance of a tugboat, began backing away from Pier 17. The intent was to sail south down the East River and head for sea. Preliminary weather report at this time was dusk conditions, westerly winds about 10 knots, and the current was about 0.3 knots towards the bridge. Upon departing the pier, the vessel's astern motion and speed increased up to 6 knots. And at 8:24 p.m., a VHF radio broadcast was sounded requesting assistance from other tugboats in the area of the Brooklyn Bridge. That was followed by 2 other requests for assistance, And at 8:24 and 45 seconds, the vessel's mast struck the underside of the Brooklyn Bridge. At 8:27, the vessel came to a stop. And at 8:30, both NYPD and FDNY assets were on scene.
Sorry for the quality of that video. It's from the NTSB YouTube channel, and I'm not sure why it's not in good quality, but that's what they have. So 4 minutes and 45 seconds from departure to hitting the bridge. That's the timeline. 10-knot wind. I think it was more than that, gusting based on the flags we saw. You're talking about a current of 0.3 knots. None of that should have propelled the ship at 6 knots into the bridge. The only thing that creates that speed is ship propulsion, and that is one of the key issues we're going to talk about. Then we have this story over at Newsweek. Mexico's Navy point finger at U.S. after ship hits Brooklyn Bridge. Story says Mexico's Navy chief has said that the pilot manning its training ship, which crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge on Saturday, was under the control of New York authorities. Admiral Ramando Pedro Morales Angeles said at a press conference on Tuesday, quote, "The ship has a training mission and is also an ambassador. Therefore, all its voyages are carried out in accordance with international standards." He goes on to say that journeys from the harbor must be controlled by a specialized harbor pilot from the New York government. It is standard practice for a local pilot to help vessels navigate a port as they make their way out to sea. Morales Angeles told reporters, quote, "The entire maneuver the ship made from leaving the dock to the moment of the collision was under the control of the pilot." End quote. He added that the harbor pilot decides how the maneuver is carried out, quote, "and what resources will be used to assist." This is in reference to the tugboat. Goes on here, during the press conference, Morales Angeles acknowledged that the pilot of the vessel had only 80 to 90 seconds to avoid the impact, adding that it was currently impossible to determine whether they took appropriate measures to avoid the collision. So there's the opinion from the Mexican Navy, sitting there saying, listen, the pilot was in control, the pilot had responsibility, it was on the pilot. Now we have this talking to the pilot's attorney about the situation.
The National Transportation Safety Board is investigating why and how a Mexican Navy training ship slammed into the Brooklyn Bridge. 2 crew members died when the ship slammed into the underside of that iconic bridge Saturday night, the masts snapping like twigs as the ship continued drifting toward the crowded pier along the East River. Luckily, no one on the bridge was hurt, but the NTSB has sent a GO team to New York, and investigators are set to give us an update later this afternoon. NewsNation's Rich McHugh joins us live. So, Rich, there are early indications rough waters and a fast-moving current may be a factor.
So we know that's not an issue. The current was only at 0.3 knots, 10-knot wind. Again, maybe gusting a little bit more, but that does not account. There's no fast current. There is no rough waters.
Well, that's the current narrative out there, Nicole, indeed. But what the person I spoke to, who is the attorney for the pilot of the ship, he disputes that. Just to reset things, this happened at 8:20 p.m. on Saturday night. You can see that the onlookers on the Brooklyn side were watching in horror because people could see what was about to happen, that the masts were not going to clear the bridge. There were 277 people aboard, 2 dead, as you said. The Mexican Navy reporting that 22 injured crew members, 11 of whom are in serious condition. Again, I spoke with James Mercante. He's a longtime New York maritime attorney. He's representing the pilot of this ship, and much of what he says goes against what the narrative is out there right now. Take a listen.
The pilot doesn't know what on the ship caused the ship to be rapidly accelerating in a backwards direction. He doesn't know the as it will come out in the investigation, the commands that the pilot was giving to the captain, which won't be disputed, was slow ahead, half ahead, full ahead, trying to get the ship going in the direction it was intended to go, which was westbound in the East River for its departure from New York Harbor and out to sea.
So the headline there, Nicole, this ship may have been stuck in reverse. That's what he told me, and that's something that the NTSB will be digging into.
So as you know, we had that presser from the NTSB, didn't get any information at all about whether or not the ship was stuck in reverse. This is James Mercante, a well-established maritime attorney. He heads his firm's Admiralty Transportation and Marine Insurance Practice Team. He's a former captain in the U.S. Navy, serves as the president of the Board of Commissioners of the Pilots for the state of New York, and he has a super lawyer designation for Admiralty law. I would like to have a super designation for anything, but that tends to tell me that James Mercante is pretty well versed in this. All right. What does all this mean, and who should we be looking at for this situation going forward? So first, this falls under the federal admiralty jurisdiction. All the waters in the United States are under federal control. They're not state or local. This is 28 U.S.C. 1333. I know, I'm not an attorney. I'm going to bore you with some attorney stuff here, but that is the legal issue. You also have a couple of jurisdictional issues here in that the ship, the Cuauhtémoc, is a Mexican naval vessel, therefore it's Mexican soil. You have Mexican citizens on board, but you can sue under U.S. law being on a ship. And so there is the potential for lawsuits to be leveled against the pilot, the tugboat. There's a lot involved here. There's also a issue here about the tugboat operator under U.S. law, Kermac versus Compagnon Generally Transatlantique 358 U.S. 625, 1959. This is under U.S. CFR 33 164.11. Tugboat operators must maintain proper control of all vehicles under tow or escort. Understand the tugboat here doesn't operate by itself. It is given orders directly by the pilot or the captain, so that when the tug lets go that line on the starboard quarter, which we can debate about, it is doing so under the direction of a ship's pilot. And then in New York Harbor, under New York navigation law, this is navigation law 89B, it requires that every foreign vessel transiting New York State waterways must be guided by a pilot licensed under the authority of this article. So therefore, you're required to have a pilot on board. However, the pilot does not alleviate you of the responsibilities of safe navigation by the ship's master. The ship's master, the captain, the civilian mariner in charge, in this case, a Navy captain in the Mexican Navy, is required to ensure the safe and prudent operation of his or her vessel, so that when the pilot orders half ahead, he expects or she expects the ship to go half ahead. If it starts going astern, that is an issue that needs to be checked. Why is it the ship went astern? Because we know it did. Was the gear tested before departure? Had there been any issues with the controllable pitch propeller? One of the unique things on Cuauhtémoc, along with its three sister ships, is it has a controllable pitch propeller. This propeller is always spinning when it's operating, and the way you change thrust is by the tilt of the propeller blades. And when they pushed forward to get forward thrust, why is it those propeller blades went astern and gave you reverse thrust? And it's very clear it gave reverse thrust. Why did that happen? Were there tests done prior to this? We're going to get the finger pointing here. What I am saying to everyone is that, number one, there's no one single person responsible for all this. People are going to go back and question the pilot. Why'd you cut that tug loose? Why didn't you keep the tug tied on? They're going to question the Mexican captain. Did you do your tests prior? Was the gear operating correctly? Understand that tugboat could have stayed tied on to the Mexican vessel and lassoed it and towed it all around the harbor. That tug is big enough that it could have hauled that tug out of the way. However, that tug let go because of a direction given to it probably by the pilot or the master with the intention that they were clear and ready to go. If that ship went forward, we're not talking about this. We're not discussing this. And those two cadets are alive and those 22 are not injured. So there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed here. What I'm saying is we're going to have to wait for the NTSB, along with the Mexican government, to complete their investigation and for this to come out. It's going to be a compilation of blame, unfortunately, here when an accident like this occurs. The question is, was there someone who is more responsible than another or something? That's what we're going to find out as we investigate this. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? You hit the super thanks button down below or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly or yearly subscriber. Until our next episode, Sal, signing off.